The Arctic wind screamed like a living thing. Snow lashed Sawyer Bennett's face as he trudged through the storm, his breath coming in ragged bursts. Then, a sound, faint, desperate, a high-pitched cry, almost drowned by the gale. Sawyer froze, straining his ears. There it was again, a whimper, weak but unmistakable. Something was out there, dying in the cold. His gut twisted. That wasn't just the wind, it was alive. Heart pounding, he turned toward the sound, boots crunching through fresh powder. The blizzard swallowed his footprints behind him. Somewhere ahead, hidden in the white chaos, a creature was fighting for its last breath. And if Sawyer didn't move fast, the Arctic would claim another soul tonight. Sawyer's flashlight beam cut through the snow, revealing a nightmare. A pit, carved into the ice bridge, its walls smoothed by human hands. And at the bottom, a ball of matted white fur. A polar bear cub, no bigger than a dog, lay trembling on its side. Fresh claw marks streaked the ice where it had tried to escape. Sawyer's jaw clenched. This was no accident. The pit was too deep, too perfect. Poachers. The cub's breaths came in shallow gasps, its ribs heaving under frost-crusted fur. One paw was raw, smeared with blood from frantic scratching. Sawyer's gloves creaked as he gripped the edge. Who does this to a baby? Above him, the wind howled like it agreed.
Kneeling, Sawyer reached into the pit. The cub flinched, too weak to snarl. Its eyes were half shut, crusted with ice. Up close, the damage was worse. Its paws split open, pink streaks staining the snow. Sawyer's throat tightened. This cub hadn't just fallen in, it had been thrown. And recently. The blood hadn't frozen yet. A rustle to his left made him whirl. 10 yards away, a massive shape thrashed in the shadows. A mother bear, wrapped in steel cables, one paw bent at a sickening angle. Her roars shook the air, her eyes locked on her cub. Sawyer's pulse spiked. She'd been caught trying to save it, and now the storm was stealing them both. The mother bear's net was anchored to a block of ice the size of a coffin. Every jerk of her body tightened the cables, slicing deeper into her swollen paw. Sawyer's stomach turned. This wasn't just a trap, it was torture, designed to exhaust her, to break her. Blood dripped from the cables, freezing before it hit the snow. Her growls weren't just rage, they were pleas. The cub whimpered again, weaker now. Sawyer's mind raced. Free the mother first? Risk her attacking him in panic? Or save the cub, buying time? The wind hissed through the trees, mocking him. Choose. Somewhere beyond the storm, an engine snarled. Poachers, coming back to check their handiwork. Sawyer's hands shook, not from cold, but fury.
The cub's breaths slowed. Sawyer's pack held climbing gear, enough to rig a hoist. But the mother bear's trap? That lock was military grade. No time for both. He grabbed his rope, looping it around a jagged ice spur. The cub's eyes flickered open, glassy with fear. Easy, little warrior, Sawyer murmured. He lowered the loop, missing twice before it caught. The cub didn't fight as the rope tightened under its arms. Above them, the mother bear screamed, lunging against her bonds. Sawyer winced as the cables bit into her flesh. "I'm trying," he growled. The rope creaked. The cub rose, inch by inch. Then a new sound cut through the storm. Snowmobiles, laughter, and the click of a rifle's safety. Voices. 3, maybe 4 men, close. Sawyer yanked the cub over the pit's edge just as headlights pierced the snow. He dove behind a drift, cradling the limp cub against his chest. Its heartbeat fluttered like a dying bird. The snowmobile skidded to a halt. "Told you we'd get one tonight," a man crowed. Sawyer peeked. Buck Ramsey, gray-bearded, grinning like the devil himself. Another man, Lance, kicked the empty pit.
The hell? It's gone! Buck's smile vanished. His eyes scanned the snow. Sawyer held his breath. The cub stirred, its nose brushing his jacket. Don't make a sound. Buck's boot crunched closer. Then a roar. The mother bear surged against her net, drawing all eyes. Buck laughed. Well, well! Mama's still here! He raised his rifle. Sawyer's blood turned to ice.
Sawyer's fingers burned with cold as he fumbled with his multi-tool. The cub's weight sagged in his arms. Gotta free the mother, but Buck's crew was already fanning out. Guns up. The mother bear's roars grew frantic. Sawyer edged toward the trap, keeping low. The lock was slick with frozen blood. His tool slipped. Click! One mechanism released. The bear went eerily still, sensing the change. Hey! Lance shouted. Someone's here! Sawyer ducked as a bullet whizzed overhead. The cub whimpered. Almost there. Another click. The net loosened, just as Vic Frost's shadow fell over him. Drop it, Ranger! Sawyer froze. Vic's knife pressed against his throat. Behind them, the mother bear rose, free at last, and pissed. The cub's chest barely moved. Sawyer's own breath stalled. No, not like this! Vic's knife bit deeper. You lost, Bennett. But Sawyer wasn't listening. The mother bear loomed behind Vic, her breath steaming in the cold. Her eyes weren't on Sawyer. They were on the cub, on him holding it. Vic followed his gaze and paled. Oh, Yuki moved. A blur of white, a snarl like thunder. Vic screamed as she swiped, sending him flying. The cub jerked in Sawyer's arms, its tiny claws gripping his sleeve. Alive. Buck's rifle barked. Yuki whirled, taking the bullet in her shoulder, and charged. The poacher scattered. Sawyer didn't wait. He sprinted for the trees, the cub tucked against him. Its heartbeat thumped. Faint, but there. Hold on, little one.
The forest swallowed them. Sawyer collapsed behind a spruce, gasping. The cub's fur was crusted with ice. He ripped open his thermal blanket, wrapping the tiny body. Come on, Blue, breathe. A distant roar shook the trees. Yuki, still fighting. Gunfire echoed. Then, a snap, a scream. Not the bears, Buck's. Silence fell. Sawyer's hands shook as he rubbed Blue's chest. A weak cough, then a whine. The cub's eyes fluttered open, focusing on Sawyer's face. Alive. Somewhere in the storm, heavy paws crunched snow. Yuki was coming. Sawyer eased Blue onto the ground and backed away. The trees parted. Yuki stood, blood matting her fur, her gaze locked on her cub. For a heartbeat, she stared at Sawyer. Then she scooped Blue up gently and vanished into the white. Sawyer sagged against the tree. His radio was dead. His hands burned, but Blue was safe. A twig snapped. He spun, just as Lance tackled him. You ruined everything! Lance's fist connected with his jaw. Sawyer's vision blurred. Another punch. Then, a click. Vic stood over them, rifle aimed at Sawyer's chest. Should have stayed out of it, Ranger. A gust of wind howled through the trees. Vic's finger tightened on the trigger. A shadow moved behind him. Yuki? No, too small. Blue? Vic didn't see it. The rifle roared. Pain exploded in Sawyer's shoulder. Lance whooped, then choked as a second shot rang out. Vic collapsed. Behind him, Buck Ramsey lowered his smoking pistol. Told you I don't like loose ends. He grinned at Sawyer. You're next.
Sawyer's blood seeped through his parka, painting the snow crimson. Buck's grin widened as he reloaded. Should have died with the bears, Bennett. The wind screamed like a living thing. Then, movement. A flash of white behind Buck. The poacher spun, firing blind. A snarl answered. Not Yuki. Blue. The cub lunged from the blizzard, teeth bared, aiming for Buck's thigh. Goddamn rat! Buck kicked. Blue yelped, skidding into the snow. Sawyer's vision tunneled. No,
Not after all this. He grabbed Lance's dropped knife and lurched forward, just as a mountain of fur exploded from the trees. Yuki. Her paw swiped Buck's rifle into the abyss. For a heartbeat, man and beast locked eyes. Then she charged. Buck's scream was cut short by the storm. The blizzard buried the evidence. No bodies, no guns. Just Sawyer's bullet wound and the scar on Blue's flank. Patrols became a dance with ghosts. Fresh snowmobile tracks at dawn. Cigarette butts by the ravine. The reserve's radio crackled with static more often than not. Sawyer checked every trap, smashed each one with his boot. But the poachers weren't done. They left messages, a gutted fox on his cabin steps, a bullet casing in his coffee tin. And today, a polar bear claw nailed to his door. Not Yuki's, too small. Blue's? Sawyer's hands shook. He'd promised to protect them. Now the hunters were hunting him. Outside, the first snowflakes of a new storm began to fall.
The trap was new. Steel jaws, half buried under fresh powder, reeking of bait. Sawyer's boot hovered over the trigger. Too obvious. A decoy. His eyes scanned the trees. There, a glint of metal above. A second trap, rigged to drop from the branches. His stomach dropped. These weren't for bears. They were for him. A snapped twig to his left. Sawyer ducked as Vic Frost's knife grazed his ear. "Miss me, Ranger?" Vic's breath stank of whiskey and hate. Behind him, two more figures emerged, new recruits. Sawyer's radio was in his pack. His rifle leaned against a tree 10 feet away. Vic smirked. "Buck always said you'd die cold." The first punch split Sawyer's lip. The snow drank the blood. They dragged him through the storm, wrists bound with wire. The ravine's edge loomed, a sheer drop into blackness. "Should have stayed gone," Vic spat. Sawyer's mind raced. Distract them. "Buck's dead," he coughed. Yuki tore his throat out. Vic froze. The others exchanged glances. Sawyer pressed. "She's coming for you next." A nervous laugh. Then a growl. Not from the woods, from below. Vic leaned over the ravine. Bad move. A snow-covered ledge gave way. He plummeted, screaming, into the darkness. The recruits bolted. Sawyer rolled toward Vic's dropped knife, sawing the wire. Too slow. A shadow blocked the moon. The last poacher stood over him, rifle raised. "This ends now." A gunshot echoed, but the pain never came. The poacher collapsed, revealing Blue, now grown, teeth red. Static hissed from the ruined radio. The poacher's bullet had torn through it first. Professional. Sawyer's fingers trembled as he checked Blue's muzzle. No blood. The grown cub had tackled, not killed. Smart. But the storm was worsening. No comms, no backup. Just a half-dead ranger and a bear who shouldn't trust him. Blue nosed Sawyer's bullet wound, whining. "I'm fine, buddy," Sawyer lied. The ravine yawned beside them. Vic's body was down there somewhere. The others would return. Blue's ears pricked. A distant engine. Sawyer's heart sank. More poachers or his team? No time to guess. He grabbed the dead man's rifle, one bullet left. Blue growled, nudging him toward the trees. "Follow." Sawyer hesitated. Then the first snowmobile crested the ridge. Not friendly. The wire bit deeper as they marched him north. "Special plans for you," the new poacher sneered. Sawyer's shoulders screamed with every step. Blue had vanished. Good. The storm swallowed the trail behind them. Then, a cabin. Not a ranger station, a butcher's shop. Pelts hung from the rafters.
polar bear, wolf, even a grizzly. Sawyer's stomach turned. The leader, a hulking man with frostbitten ears, grinned. We saved the claws for souvenirs. He lifted a blood-stained pry bar. The rest, bait. Sawyer's binds were tossed over a roof beam. They hoisted him until his toes barely touched the floor. "Let's see if your bear friends miss you," Frostbite chuckled. Outside, the wind howled. Or was that a roar?
The cabin walls shook. Frostbite dropped the pry bar. "What the?" Boom. The door exploded inward. Yuki, twice as wide as the doorway, her fur matted with ice and old blood. The poacher scrambled for weapons. Too slow. She moved like a blizzard given flesh. One man died mid-reach, his spine meeting her claws. Another emptied his rifle into her shoulder. No effect. Sawyer swung helplessly from the rafters. Yuki's golden eyes found his. A leap. The beam splintered. Sawyer crashed down as Yuki turned on Frostbite. The man backed into a pelt-laden wall. No! Her jaws closed on his arm. Crack. His scream drowned in her roar. Then, silence. Only Sawyer's ragged breaths. Yuki huffed, nudging him toward the door. "Go." Blue waited outside, tail wagging. Dawn painted the snow pink. Sawyer limped behind Blue, Yuki flanking them like a living fortress. The cabin burned in the distance. No bodies would be found. Not in this storm. Yuki paused, sniffing the wind. Blue mimicked her, then bolted ahead. Sawyer's breath caught. There, a den. Hidden under a glacier's overhang. Two smaller cubs tumbled out, tackling Blue in a play fight. Her new family. Yuki watched Sawyer, her gaze unreadable. Then she did something impossible. She dipped her head, a nod. Not human, not tame, but gratitude. Sawyer's throat tightened. "Keep them safe," he whispered. Yuki huffed, turning toward her cubs. When Sawyer glanced back minutes later, they were gone. Only paw prints remained, vanishing into the eternal wall.
The snowmobile's engine died at the worst moment. Sawyer's headlamp flickered over the ravine, and the figure standing there. Buck Ramsey, half frozen, one eye milky from Yuki's claws. "Knew you'd come back," he rasped. His rifle was gone, just a hatchet in his grip. Sawyer's own gun was empty. Blue growled at his side. Buck spat blood. "That damn bear took everything!" He lunged. Sawyer sidestepped, but the ice betrayed him. They both went over the edge. The world spun. Pain. Darkness. Then teeth in his collar. Blue hauled him onto a ledge. Below, Buck's body lay broken on the rocks. The cub nuzzled Sawyer's cheek, whining. "I'm okay," Sawyer coughed. Above them, the first stars pierced the storm. Over. Finally over. Spring came late. Sawyer's report called it animal self-defense. No charges, no funerals, just a pile of confiscated traps melting into the tundra. At the ravine's edge, he knelt. The snow had reclaimed Buck's bones. A scrape of claws made him turn. Blue stood 10 feet away, taller now, his scars faded. No Yuki, no cubs, just him. Sawyer reached slowly into his pack. Blue tensed, then sniffed the air. Salmon. Sawyer tossed it. Blue caught it midair, wolfed it down, and woofed, almost a laugh. Then he turned, padding toward the mountains. Sawyer didn't follow. Some bonds didn't need words. Some debts were paid in blood and blizzards. He touched his healed shoulder. "Thanks, buddy." The wind carried his voice away. Somewhere in the white, a bear roared. Not a threat, a goodbye.
Sawyer's fingers were numb, the wire cutting deep into his wrists. The poachers had left him strung up like gutted game, the storm licking his wounds. Then, warm breath on his neck, a click of teeth. He tensed. Yuki? No. Blue. The young bear's jaws closed over the wires. Not tearing, not biting, precise. A snap. The bonds fell. Sawyer collapsed into the snow, gasping. Blue nudged his shoulder, whining. "I'm okay," Sawyer rasped, cupping the bear's scarred muzzle. Blue's eyes, Yuki's eyes, held something beyond instinct. Recognition. The wind howled, but for a heartbeat, the cold didn't touch them. Then Blue turned, vanishing into the white. Sawyer's tears froze before they fell. The radio crackled to life. "Anyone copy? Sawyer, damn it!" His team. Sawyer fumbled for the mic, his throat raw. "Here!" Static. Then cheering. Rescue is coming. But his gaze stayed fixed on the tree line. She emerged like a ghost. Yuki. Blood streaked her flank, her breath slow and heavy. She didn't approach, just looked at him. Sawyer lifted a trembling hand. Not a wave, a salute. Yuki's ears twitched. Then a sound. Not a growl, not a roar, a chuff. The bear equivalent of a nod. Behind her, Blue barked, urging her on. Yuki turned, her massive frame blending into the storm. Sawyer's chest ached. No words, none needed. The engine sounds grew louder. He let the snow erase their footprints before his team arrived.
The report was brief. Poacher activities ceased. No bodies recovered. Sawyer's superiors eyed his scars but asked no questions. Months passed. The Arctic thawed, then froze again. On the first winter patrol, Sawyer found it. Yuki's den, collapsed under fresh powder. Empty. No tracks, no signs. Just a single sun-bleached claw lodged in the ice. He pocketed it. That night, at the cabin, he pinned it beside a faded photo, Blue as a cub, curled in his parka. The wind rattled the windows. Somewhere out there, the wild endured. Maybe Yuki still ruled some hidden valley. Maybe Blue had cubs of his own. Sawyer sipped his coffee, the claw glinting in the lamplight. Legends didn't need endings, just witnesses. Spring exposed the truth. The river spit out Buck's rifle, rusted and bent. The motorcycles? Swallowed by a crevasse. Sawyer documented it all, for the record. But the ice kept its secrets. At the ravine's edge, he paused. A glint in the mud. Vic's knife. He kicked it into the abyss. No trophies, no vengeance. Just the quiet work of healing. That evening, a noise outside, a scrape of claws. Sawyer froze. The door creaked open. No bear stood there, just a lone Arctic fox, its coat gleaming. It yipped once, then bolted. Sawyer smiled. Life went on. The wild remembered, but it didn't mourn. He left a salmon on the step. By dawn, it was gone.
5 years later, Sawyer's knees protested every patrol, but he still walked the ice bridge, still checked the old traps. That's when he saw them, fresh prints, too large for Blue, Yuki-sized. His pulse spiked. He followed them to the pit where it all began. The walls had crumbled, the blood was long gone, and there, curled in the hollow, slept a new cub, alone, no mother in sight. Sawyer's breath fogged. Then a shadow, a massive bear watched from the ridge. Not Yuki, Blue, scarred, older. A father now? The cub squeaked, waddling toward him. Blue didn't stop it, just watched. Sawyer knelt, offering his glove. The cub sniffed,
A new cycle began. Some bonds outlasted memory. The cub, Nora, he called her, stayed 3 days. Sawyer kept his distance, leaving fish by the pit. Blue visited at dusk, always silent. On the 4th morning, Nora was gone. But the prince told the story. 2 sets, heading north. Sawyer's chest tightened. He'd never see her again. That afternoon, a storm rolled in. Through the snow, a flicker of movement, 2 cubs tumbling down adrift, Blue herding them. Then, impossibly, a 3rd bear, smaller, lighter, a female with a familiar scarred paw. Yuki? His eyes burned. The wind stole the image before he could be sure. Maybe it was her. Maybe just a trick of the light. It didn't matter. The Arctic gave. It took. And somewhere beyond the storm, the wild thrived.
Retirement papers sat unsigned on Sawyer's desk. He traced the claw on his wall. Yuki's? Blue's? Before grabbing his coat. One last patrol. The ice bridge groaned underfoot. The pit was empty now, reclaimed by time. He knelt, pressing a hand to the frozen earth. "I kept my promise," he murmured. No answer came, just the wind. Then, a crunch. Behind him, Blue stood, gray-muzzled but proud. No cubs this time, just him. Sawyer smiled. "Took your time." Blue huffed, turning toward the mountains. Sawyer followed. They walked until the cabin vanished, until the snow became the only world. At the glacier's edge, Blue stopped. Sawyer did too. No words, no gestures. Just a man and a bear, side by side, watching the sun set on the ice. Perfect. The video went viral. Retired Ranger's final patrol, accompanied by wild polar bear. Sawyer ignored the calls. The claw stayed on his wall. The photo of Blue as a cub stayed in his wallet. Years passed. Then, on a December morning, a knock. A park ranger, young, nervous, held out a camera. "Sir, is this you?" The screen showed fresh tracks. A massive bear, scarred flank, trailing 2 cubs, and beside them, boot prints. Sawyer's breath caught. The kid stammered, "We think it's your bear, but who was walking with him?" Sawyer handed back the camera. Outside, snow began to fall. Some stories didn't need endings, just believers. He touched the claw one last time. "And old friend," he whispered. The wind carried his words away.
The montage opens with shaky footage, a grizzly's paw smashing a poacher's trap into oblivion, the metal twisting like foil under raw animal fury. The camera jerks upward to capture the bear's eyes, gleaming with something beyond primal rage, something like justice. The scene dissolves into elephants forming an impenetrable wall of gray flesh around their wounded young, tusks lowered in unison against rifle-toting men. Then, wolves moving like silver ghosts through pines, leading searchers to a hypothermic child. Sawyer's voice, gravelly with years of Arctic winds, asks, "We call it instinct, but what if it's more?" The screen holds on Blue's scarred face, his knowing gaze piercing the 4th wall. Text materializes. They remember. The cabin appears empty now, its windows frost-rimmed, the claw and photo absent. But below the sill, a fresh paw print mars the snow, too large to be anything but his. Darkness. Then the rasp of a match igniting. The flickering light reveals Sawyer's gnarled hands turning Yuki's claw between trembling fingers. His voice comes slow, each word weighted with decades of Arctic nights. 24 years old, kneeling in blood-stained snow with a dying cub in my arms. The camera pulls back to show his face,
creviced with time, eyes still holding that old fire. 67 now. Some mornings I wake expecting to hear blues whimper in the wind. The scene cuts to modern rangers, young faces flushed with cold, shattering traps with righteous fury. Sawyer's whisper cuts through the hammer blows. The ice remembers. Be the one who stops them. Your logo appears as the claw clatters to the table. In the silence between heartbeats, a roar swells, not from speakers, but from memory itself.